there from summer of '68 through the spring of '69.
I'm Jimmy Wynn. I was there in 1967 and graduated in '71.
My name is George Jenkins. I attended Schreiner, gosh, I got there my sophomore year, so 1970. I was there my sophomore, junior, and senior year. Graduated in 1972.
72. It just taught me to be self-sufficient and disciplined, you know, and how to take care of myself, how to, you know, that I needed to respect others and get their respect also.
Thank you, Burke. Thank you, Burke, for pulling us all together, man. It's been incredible.
Yes, I was born and raised in Guatemala. I was living in Guatemala at the time when I started going to Schreiner.
And how the heck did you end up from Guatemala to?
Well, I was going to a little missionary school in Guatemala at the time, and it only went to 10th grade.
Okay.
So my dad wanted me to go to school in the States and graduate, you know, from high school there and continue my education. And so he was working for a guy that was from Alice, Texas at the time. And so he asked him for advice as far as what schools were available, you know, in Texas, because he wanted to kind of have me a little bit close. And so one of the schools that he named was Schreiner. And I wanted to go to a military school. And he chose Schreiner, although he was divorced from my mom already. My mom came from a Presbyterian family, and Schreiner was connected with the Presbyterian Texas Synod at the time. And so that's how I wound up going to Schreiner.
So it wasn't because you got in trouble and he sent you to military school?
No. I made it. I wanted to go to military school, and I wound up there.
So Cynthia says you were a perfect gentleman. You had all good grades. You never soaped the fountain. You always stayed in your room and studied.
I didn't always stay in my room and study, but you know,
she said something about like bringing food to the homeless and reading to the elderly. I don't know.
I don't think I did that.
I said he was an officer.
Oh, okay. What was your rank?
You know what? One thing that I did like to do, though.
What's that?
On the way, when we walked in from Schreiner into downtown to go to the movies, we had to walk by a old folks' home. And there was a couple of old gentlemen there that had fought in World War I.
Wow!
And I'd love to go to talk to those guys and listen to their stories.
Sure.
You know, but I couldn't remember their names now. But I thought that was pretty neat. You know, because they always sat there in the little rocking chairs right there by the street. You know, and so I'd stop by and talk to them.
We talked to the elderly.
So
you didn't read to the elderly, but you talked to them.
Yes,
and that's really half the battle. Reading, talking. Now, did you have a parachute in your room? Was that you, or was it? No,
No.
Tim had the parachute.
Yeah,
okay.
Tim had the parachute.
All right.
I didn't have too much because I had to go to Guatemala
right
every summer, so I packed light. Everything had to fit in one Foot Locker.
Excellent. Any favorite teachers or faculty members that you recall?
Well, there's two favorite teachers that I had. One of them was Mrs. Massey. She was our algebra teacher.
Okay.
And JT is inside.
I saw him.
And JT was our dorm daddy. And he also taught math. And I really actually didn't have him until I got to junior college. I had him for calculus, but
Okay.
he was one of my favorite guys. Yes.
And why was Schreiner so important to you in your life?
Oh gosh, it just taught me to be self-sufficient and disciplined, you know, and how to take care of myself, how to, you know, that I needed to respect others and get their respect also.
Okay.
So, and I made a lot of good friends, a lot of just really neat friends.
Is this the first time you've been here? Is your third time at the
This is my
reunion?
second time.
Okay.
This is my second time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they've done it for 3 years. Is that right?
I think this is the fourth year.
Oh, really? Okay. So you've gone to the last two.
Yes.
And where do you live now?
I live in Corpus Christi.
Corpus Christi. Okay. What are you doing down there?
I'm a safety engineer for Lyondale Basell Industries.
Okay.
We're a petrochemical company.
When you're not at the coast fishing.
No, I don't fish.
Okay.
I pretty much I do a lot of shopping.
You do a lot of shopping, like
Yes, 'cause
online, or
no, because my wife likes to.
Oh,
that's her
okay.
favorite pastime. So
I
I
see.
kind of go around with her.
you go around with her? Well, that's important. Shoppers need their support.
Weekend trips, Wimberley.
Oh, good.
Breakfast.
Weekend trips to Wimberley.
Yeah, one thing that I'm trying to come back to is something that I learned at Schreiner.
What's that?
I was captain of the rifle team with marksmanship. And so I'm trying to get back into that and competitive
Like
shooting.
competitive shooting? Okay. All right.
I've always enjoyed that. Yes.
Well,
Got a
good.
new rifle, you got a new pistol.
I'm glad y'all got out of there.
You're ready to go.
Yes, I'm ready to go.
Do you have a CHL as well, or a concealed handgun license?
No, that's a long story. I'm not into that.
Okay. All right. Well, you're just in the competitive stuff. Okay. Well, that's cool. And what years again were you there at Schreiner?
I started in '68. I graduated from high school in '70, and I stayed through junior college in '72.
What point did it become all? What point did the girls show up?
Well, the girls showed up as actually being co-ed in junior college in 71, 72.
Okay.
That's last year I was there.
All right.
Now there had been girls there, but they were not. They didn't have a dorm for girls.
Okay. They were off campus then?
They were
or-
off campus co-eds, and they were only in college. They never had girls in the high school part of it.
Until the last year you were there.
Yep.
That's like culture shock.
Oh yeah.
That's okay. They say we.
Hey, your wife is sitting right over there, so I guess we
There
better
there
not.
was only like about 10 guys to each girl, so
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
there was a lot of competition.
Oh, so the girls were loving it.
So you either had to be good looking or, or I don't know what.
The girls were loving it. The guys, yeah, too much competition, I guess. Tell me your name and what years you went there.
David Ainsworth from 1969, 1974.
Okay. And where did you come from when you went to Schreiner?
I lived on the Schreiner campus all my life.
Oh, really?
I actually lived at Schreiner from 1956 to 1974.
Okay, so your last name is Ainsworth, and somebody has been mentioning another Ainsworth. Your father was faculty? What did he do there?
He taught English,
Okay.
and he also provided Schreiner with whatever they had in the way of a theater program, which was not much. He did that at his own expense, pretty much.
Okay, drama and all that?
Right. That's one of the reasons that he wrote so many one-act plays, is that he knew that he couldn't afford the royalties to take the play to the Texas Junior College Speech and Theater Association one-act play festival. He knew the school wouldn't give him any money to do that. So to save that, he would just write his own plays and
That's
take
awesome.
in the contests.
So how old were you when you first got there as a child?
Oh, I guess I was born in Austin, but before I was a full year old.
Okay, so your first memory is...
Right, I have no memory of anything earlier than the Schreiner campus.
Wow, okay. And then you eventually went there for school. What years again were you there for school?
Well, I started, my freshman year was 69, 70.
Okay.
and I did 4 years of high school and then 1 year at the junior college as it then was. So after that, we moved back to Georgetown where my family had some property so that my brother and I could both attend Southwestern University as day students
Okay.
without having to pay for pay housing.
Sure. Where do you live right now, David?
Abilene, Texas.
Abilene. Did you drive down here from Abilene? It's a long drive.
Oh, it's about 2 hours, 45 minutes, something like that.
Oh, really? Okay.
We came down
Not too bad.
through Ballinger and Winters and Paint Rock.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm an associate professor of theater at McMurray University.
Just like your father, kind of followed his
Well,
footsteps.
sort of, except that I majored in theater instead of in
Okay.
English. So.
He just kind of did it on the side.
Right. In other words, I don't think he ever took a theater class in his life. It's just something he had an affinity for.
He had a love for it,
basically,
obviously.
yeah.
Yeah.
And even after he moved back to Georgetown and taught at Round Rock High School, he taught English, and it became obvious that he knew more about theater than anybody else on the
Really?
at the Round Rock faculty. So they let him teach all the theater classes too, even though he wasn't really certified to do that. He was, yeah, right. We were fairly isolated as children because my mother had a grudge, as it were, against the Tybee school system. I guess I don't really blame her. Basically, when she was she started teaching at Tybee, but she was pregnant with my brother at the time. When she started to show, they told her that she had to quit. Of course, this was the mid 1950s.
Right.
Today, that would be like ridiculous. Nobody would insist on that.
Well, it was ridiculous then too, but I understand what you're saying.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I can understand her being angry. But anyway, when she finally decided to go back to work, she took a job in Bandera, about 25 miles away.
Great city.
And that would be okay, except that she insisted on us as children accompanying her. So we went to school 25 miles away from where we lived.
Wow.
And consequently, we didn't really we didn't grow up among a circle of friends. And so the campus was pretty much our world. I mean, it's like we went to school in a different world and came home to this different world.
Right.
And so, yeah, I have our memories are fairly grounded in Schreiner, and mine goes so far back that there's very little about the campus that I now recognize, and that gives me a sort of wave of nostalgia.
Because it's changed so much.
It's changed so much.
Wow.
There's only one small part of it that I still look around and say, yeah, this looks like the Schreiner that I remember, and that's oddly enough the old faculty club in the Robbins Lewis Auditorium area.
Okay. Any fond memories? Anything that stands out in terms of?
Well, I remember going to rehearsal after rehearsal after rehearsal of my father's plays as a kid, and for some of them it got to the point where I was the unofficial prompter because I heard the lines so many times that I could prompt, and I remember the actors would always be surprised that this 7, 8, 9-year-old kid could recite the play.
You could probably stand in for anybody then, right?
Well, the age factor, but I knew everybody's lines, and I could serve as a walking prompt book.
That's pretty cool. Were you ever involved in any of the bottle rocket fights across the quadrangle? Or?
I remember being a spectator to that.
Everybody remembers spectating, but no one remembers doing these things.
Well,
Now, I understand someone put a car inside one of the buildings too.
Oh, I heard that, but I don't know. I still can't imagine how they got. The story I heard was they got a Volkswagen up onto the second floor of the Weir building. I don't know how they could have done that. I don't know, maybe those back double doors at the top of those big stone steps would have been wide enough to admit a Volkswagen if they'd managed to haul it up those steps. I'm pretty sure the stairway itself was wide enough, but I don't know about the doors.
What about soaping the fountain? You ever do that?
Oh, I didn't do it, but I remember soap suds in the fountain quite a bit.
Yeah, that happened quite frequently, from what I understand.
With fair regularity, yeah. I don't think the fountain's there anymore, is it? That they used
don't
to
know.
soap.
I think they removed it.
It was right outside the Dieter Chapel Auditorium, wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
And as we were taking a tour today, I don't remember seeing the fountain. I mean, there's a sort of a cross there, I think, where it used to be, but I don't think the fountain. Well, I do remember that had Mr. Ball for world history. And before I came to Schreiner, I was so miserable in Bandera, I would have gone anywhere just to get away from Bandera. And I was making C's and D's regularly in Bandera. And I remember the very first test we took in world history, I made a D, and I remember him passing back the tests and then saying, "A little harder, David, a little harder." And I have not the ghost of an idea why, but from that point I resolved to make much better grades in that class, and then that sort of steamrolled into 1A after another, after another, after another. So that kind of, I think that turned me around academically. I certainly needed turning around because Bandera was a terrible place for me to be. I mean, my brother adjusted to it. He went.
But you were not happy.
No, I was totally miserable. And he finished up high school in Bandera. He did all the years of his schooling at Bandera Elementary, Bandera Junior High, and Bandera High School.
He loved it.
And well, I guess, or at least he came to terms with it. But I would have. My mother wouldn't let us go to Tybee.
Oh, is he?
So
I don't recall.
people sometimes wonder, why did you go to Schreiner? You didn't have to. Something because it was a military school and that sort of thing, and that's the secret. I mean, I would have gone anywhere that my parents would have allowed me to go. My mother wasn't thrilled at the idea of my going to Schreiner, but she couldn't absolutely say no. And because she couldn't absolutely say no, that was enough for me. Right? So,
Well, the story you share is other people have shared as well, that they got there and maybe their grades weren't the best or they were not happy before, and it really turned them around. It made a big impact on them. When you were there, you lived there as a child with your parents, your father, and then you went there as a student. How was it different as a student as opposed to just tagging along with your father, or was it not different?
well, it was different in that I was in uniform, like they were all in uniform. I didn't have the dormitory experience.
Okay, so you lived with your family. You didn't have it in the dorms. Okay.
Right. Well, for a while we lived in the dorms, but in the faculty apartments in the dorms. The first place we lived was in the downstairs faculty apartment in Dickey Hall, and then we moved from there to the faculty apartment in L.A. Schreiner Hall, and then from there to a separate house at the far end of the campus, down near, not far from where the main gate is, very near the boundary property of the school. But for the first time, I had a peer group in some quantity. People I went to class with that I saw in some quantity every day that I marched in formation with, and they were around most of the year. The only exception to that, of course, was the summer months when everybody went home. But that was my first encounter with a peer group that was around most of the time, because the other faculty children, that was not the equivalent. I mean, there were relatively few of us, and we were so widely distributed in age that we didn't really hang out.
Didn't have anything in common with them?
No, not really. They all went to Tybee, right, or to the Kerrville elementary schools, right? But the people with whom we might have formed friendships of that type lived 25 miles away. We couldn't hang out with them on a regular basis. And in any case, Bandera, Texas was a totally alien environment for a couple of kids that were brought up the way we were. I mean, our parents were both English teachers, very much into the classics.
That's totally different.
And Bandera, cowboy capital of the world, I mean, there couldn't have been a bigger culture shock for two kids like us. And like I say, my brother either adjusted to it or really learned to love it. For me, it got worse and worse and worse and worse until I could hardly stand to go there. When I was in junior high, that was like the nadir of my experience going to school.
Well, it explains the fact that you lived with your family and not in the dorms at Schreiner Institute. That explains why you didn't get too involved in some of the pranks or things, because you were
exactly.
Just one other question: what's it mean? A couple other questions. This has been going on for 3 years. How many? Is this your first year here?
This is my first year here.
Your first, okay.
I wanted to come last year, but there was a performance of a play I was directing right smack dab on top of it, and there probably will be next year.
Wow.
Because we do student-written one-act plays every other year, and they usually fall right about this time.
Okay.
But I had wanted to last year, and then checked the calendar and well, it's not going to happen.
This is your first year. What does it mean to you to see these guys that you knew when they were 15 and 16, and now they're all old guys?
It's the strongest reconnection with Kerrville that I've had in quite some time. I made several trips back to Kerrville as a sort of, can I go home again? But the answer was no, because both Kerrville and the college was changing so rapidly.
Right.
And essentially, the high school department was no more. You know, for the 5 years that I went there, I was in a culture and a program that no longer exists, and I've been amazed at the reconnective quality of this. I was a little bit skeptical. I thought, oh my gosh, it's been donkey's years since
Over
I've
40
seen
years,
any of these guys. Will I even recognize half of them? Will they remember me? Because I was kind of, relatively speaking, on the fringes of their experience since I didn't live in the dorm. But I've had more reconnection with the place where I spent the first 18 years of my life doing this than I have with anything else that I've done, including visiting the campus itself.
Well, good. Some of the people have changed, some of them stayed the same.
Well,
everybody's matured, obviously, because
yes,
they were young boys at that
yes,
time.
but we regress a little bit.
That's okay.
When we remember.
At that point.
My family lived in Mexico at the time. Yeah, so yeah, I was one of the foreign students, kind of. Yeah.
Now, how did you end up? Was this Mexico City or?
It was north of there, a place called Celaya, Guanajuato.
Okay. And how did you end up in a small military school in Kerrville, Texas?
It was kind of a combination. There was a little disciplinary in that, I think, but there was a cultural thing living in this city in Mexico.
Yes.
That it was kind of traditional for all of the boys at a certain age to go away to military school. I had an older brother who was Phillips Exeter, Dartmouth, Harvard, and so I was always brought up like, when you grow up, you're going to go away to, to prep school too. And it's kind of funny, one of these school catalogs was laying on my bed, and they're all military schools, right? It's kind of like, and everybody, well, gee, what's that all about? And Schreiner seemed the best choice out of schools in New Mexico, TMI, some other ones in Texas.
Right. San Antonio, yeah. Where are you living right now?
I live in Boston, Massachusetts.
What do you do for a living?
I actually work for a trade association, the Massachusetts Restaurant Association. Okay. So most of my career was in hospitality, restaurant, hotels. So having been on the operational side after 22 years, it's kind of nice to take a position with the trade association.
Kind of a break in a way? Or?
Yeah, it is. I still sometimes miss some of the excitement. I don't think this is my last stop. I think for a lot of us, I think it was our first time away, and I think that part of that's part of the entire equation is, hey, your first time, and you're kind of leaving the nest now. So it's hard to have expectations. What did I expect? It's hard for me to think about it. So and my life's always been kind of an adventure. I've kind of taken things as they come, kind of believing in fate. So I think we all kind of shared that a little bit, that, you're away, you're thrown in, all for different reasons.
You're forced to make friends, in a way?
Well, yeah, and making friends wasn't really hard for me, only because my family had moved a few times, right? I was acquainted, but a lot of it too was we were all sent there for similar reasons, and strangely, it may not have been the best solution. I think looking at me isolated, that my parents thought, this will be pretty good. This will be kind of a disciplinary move for us, or that he'll come out of this, with learning some new traits and stuff.
Right.
It was a time of life. I mean, the 60s, 68, 69 was a drug
Some tough years
revolution.
for our country, yeah.
And there was all kinds of things going on. And dissidents, a lot of these people, came, and I think we all learned a little bit of the dark side as much as we learned anything else.
Do you feel like it was the end of an era almost at some point? With the history, the historical aspect of what was going on?
Yeah, for me it was more the beginning.
Okay.
I think.
Beginning
Yeah.
side.
I mean, it was Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin.
Are you
and this whole
experienced?
deal. Yeah. I mean, so, yeah, I think I shared that more, not as the end of an experience, but we were out there at a time when everything was changing, and we were sharing, ideas that shaped our lives. There's memories. I don't think I had a mentor per se. Bill Campion was the bad guy.
That's
and
what I
stuff.
hear.
But I mean,
He was a good bad guy.
yeah. But everybody, you had to be a bad guy, and you have a relationship with that guy, and so we got to know each other. I wasn't the most well-behaved guy on campus, so I got to spend some fun time with Bill Campion.
So are you telling me you were perhaps involved from time to time in pranks or crazy things that occurred?
Maybe
Hey,
once or twice.
It's Confess Your Crime Saturday. I guess. You ever soap the fountain?
No, I didn't. I didn't do the fountain.
You did other stuff.
I remember I did something bad enough once that I was given an alternative to go in front of the disciplinary board.
Oh, wow.
Or to face the dean's board, which was a small wooden paddle.
And your choice?
I took the dean's paddle,
Yeah.
because that would be a little more personal and
Get it
private.
over
Maybe
with.
mom and dad won't find out about that. And I remember leaning over his desk and lowering my pants for him to smack me with this, looked like a cricket frickin' paddle or something. And I think I got my 10 whacks or something, which were pretty painful. And it was my birthday.
Oh, boy.
And I turned around and I said, I bet you never had a birthday this exciting. And he goes, oh, it's your birthday? Comes around the desk, shakes my hand, says, happy birthday.
Nothing happened.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah, they don't do that anymore. What about some of the stories of just kind of the local area, going into town, meeting girls, you go to St. Mary's Hall to find girls? Or
Yeah, no, it was kind of funny. And there were a few of us that were kind of risky. I mean, I was kind of known for leaving police a number of times.
Oh, wow.
Bill Campion would come down and not alone. It would be me and a couple of guys or one guy, and kind of be picked up at the police station by Bill and be brought back. So, yeah, but the locals, I mean, it was kind of fun. It was more the society inside the campus. It was kind of like Lord of the Flies, I think. When you put any group of guys together like that in any aspect, you've got some bonding and some personalities that emerge and groups and, followers and leaders and stuff like that. So I think it was great.
This is the third reunion. How many have you been able to attend?
This is my third.
Okay, you've been to all of them.
And I remember the first because a lot of my comrades are from Texas and live in Texas, and I think I've had probably some communications or some touches over the years.
Right.
On my part, I mean, I was kind of a traveler, so I've been all around. I mean, I lived in different states all the time, and so I kind of fell out of touch. And it's strange because there's always that impact of what you remember personally from the days at Schreiner, and not being able to share that or compare it with other experiences or other people's experiences. The first reunion was like this just incredible moment for me. There was some closure in it. There was this, hey, you're not alone.
Yeah.
So it was pretty,
And you hadn't seen them in over 40 years.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. Have they changed? Have some of them stayed the same?
Yeah, no. Yeah.
A little bit of both, maybe?
The way we knew each other, I mean, you're not surprised too much about how they are 40 years later. That everything seems very logical.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few, I guess, exceptions to that rule, but in general,
Physical
no.
changes, but
Physical and
personality is the
mental
same.
and personality, or man, I really thought you would have been who knows what. So, no, but it's just great, regardless. Just you get this feeling, hey, I'm not alone. Some of the stuff that I've been feeling and thinking that maybe, emerged from my experience at Schreiner is shared by all these guys. It wasn't just me, so it's great.
This was a special time for so many of you, from all the gentlemen I've interviewed. In closing, just wanted to ask you this: is there any one thing that you took from your experience there? Maybe an experience you had?
I think the biggest thing I learned is not to drink a bottle of Tabasco.
Yeah, I would probably avoid
So
that.
I got hoodwinked into that one.
Did you? It's a
Pretty
whole
cool.
bottle?
So we used to get allowances of $5 a week, which was like, that's all you had for the week. And there were a few times that guys in the dorm would get together and kind of challenge somebody to do
Right,
something.
for
So
money, huh?
My challenge was a bottle of Tabasco. And I got one slice of bread though to make it easier, right? And I think I probably made my 30 or 35.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Thank you, Burke. Thank you, Burke, for pulling us all together, man. It's been incredible.
I was there 69 and 70.
And where did you come from on the way to, by way of?
I came from Dallas, Texas. I grew up in
Dallas.
Oak Cliff. I was on the south side of town.
Oak Cliff,
I
okay.
went to a public high school there, and my father had died when I was in the 9th grade, and I was starting to go that direction of where you sometimes go when you don't have proper adult supervision. And anyway, I came to a deal with my mother that I would come to Schreiner. I had relatives in the hill country, and I knew Kerrville well, and I liked it. I liked the hill country, and had a sense that this was the right decision. And then after I got here and got to know the teachers and the kids, it really was a do-over for me.
Mm-hmm.
I got to start up.
Kind of reinvent yourself.
And reinvent myself, and a couple of teachers I had here, just a combination of a teacher and a coach, really changed my life.
Who was that?
Well, my senior year in high school English, I had a teacher named Radon Alexander. Yeah, he was only here 1 year, but Mr. Alexander taught the honors English class to the seniors. And I was not in that class, and I heard it was good, so I wanted to get in it. My first paper I got back, I had a 9 on it, and on the essay. And I said to myself, well, this must mean 9 out of 10. So I went over to his apartment over in Hoon, and I said, Mr. Alexander, what's this about? Let me back up a little bit. I forgot to tell you that after I saw that 9, I flipped the paper over and read what was on the back. And what was on the back was something, and I'm paraphrasing here, you've said nothing, and you've said it with great arrogance. So I could have just told him, well, the heck with you, I'll go back to Mr. Stone's class. But I didn't. There was something about him something about him, I knew that he understood something I didn't understand. And so I went over to Hoon Hall after dinner one night, and I went to his apartment, and I just saw this vast array of books. It seemed like the knowledge of the world was on his bookshelf. And right there in the middle, there were these old 17th century leather-bound editions of Plato and Homer and Thucydides, Herodotus. And I picked up a copy of one of these old leather-bound books, and I opened up, and it was classical Greek. And I looked at that, and I was mesmerized. And so that's when it began for me. So a couple of times every week, I would go over after dinner, and he would explain to me the whole evolution of the intellectual tradition in Western civilization, and how it begins with the Greeks and passed on by the Romans, and that stuck with me. And so I ended up majoring in classical Greek in college. I got interested in Greek philosophy, did a master's degree in classical Greek and Latin and philosophy, PhD at Rice in religious studies. Mm-hmm. My dissertation was about the impact of printing technology on the Reformation, but also about the resurgence of Greek text.
And it did have a big influence on you.
Tremendous. My whole life. I mean, I would be, whatever I am today, it was intellectually, it was a result of my friendship with Schreiner Alexander. He changed my life intellectually. the other great force in my life was Coach Bill Campion. And I'm sure you've probably heard this story several times by now, but basically the way I remember it, and we never can completely trust our memories, but I just remember looking forward after a terrible football season to playing basketball with Dick Harbin. And Dick was a great coach, but it was more about character building, and it wasn't about winning with Dick. Like I said, he was a good coach, but winning wasn't everything for him. And we were kind of looking forward to a laid-back season, just kind of decompressing from football.
Right.
And what we didn't know is that Dick had decided to take some night classes at St. Mary's University in San Antonio that semester. He traded responsibilities with Bill Campion, who was our dean of students. And everybody that we feared, someone we feared, and by whom we were very intimidated. So he comes into as our call, comes into the gym and looks at us and says, "I'm going to be your basketball coach." And we had this look of horror on our faces. And I think there was a moment where Bill actually said, "You can leave if you want to, and no shame attached." But none of us did, and we stayed, and he basically said, if you stay, we're going to win the conference.
Really?
Yeah, we're going to do whatever we have to do to win this conference, and you're going to do it. And we knew he meant it. And we also knew what that meant. That meant we were going to be working hours and hours and running and training, and basketball was going to be our life for the next 2 months, 2.5 months. So that's what happened. And so he got us in the best possible shape we could get him. He got the best out of us. But even so, even so, we were not really good basketball players. I mean, each of us had a little bit of a talent here or there, but we were in tremendous shape, and we were willing to listen to this coach.
And that's kind of what it takes, isn't it, though?
Yeah, and so what we had, Coach Campion, it was like he had just so many instruments in this orchestra, and he had to know how to play the tune right in order for us to win, and that's what he knew best. I mean, he knew how to motivate somebody when they needed motivating. He knew how to get the best out of you just when you thought you were down and out and couldn't go any further. He'd inspire you to get off your feet and get back in. So what came out of that, Scott, over my life, is times, intellectually I had training to go ahead and get those degrees and do all that. But the discipline it took to get that, the discipline came from Coach Campion.
And you were able to apply that discipline in all areas of your life?
In all areas of my life.
What are you doing nowadays?
I went on to kind of follow in Coach Campion's footsteps. I worked in private schools all my life. I worked at a boarding school at the Baylor School for Boys in Chattanooga back in '78. Then I took a job in Houston at St. Thomas Episcopal School, which is a K-12 school. And they required Latin from the 5th through the 12th grade, and I did that for 20 years, and then I became headmaster of that school for 7 years.
TMI, or that one, the one in Houston?
This is the one in Houston,
okay.
So I was 7 years headmaster there. Then I got interested in the Big Bend area of Texas and wanted to retire there. And so I took a job a little closer. When the opening at TMI came available, I became headmaster at TMI, and I did that 6 years. And then I retired from that position and moved to Alpine, Texas.
That's Big Bend country.
And it's Big Bend country. I was on the board of a little Alpine Christian school. And I think like Coach Campion, every time he's tried to retire, something comes along and he ends up retiring. So again, probably the Campion in me, I tried to retire, but I was on the board of this little Alpine Christian school, and I was helping out with that, and I got so involved that they finally just asked me if I would be the next headmaster, and I accepted that. So I'm now headmaster of the Alpine Christian School in Alpine, Texas.
Excellent.
And I'll do that for as long as the Lord wants me to, and we'll get that school up and going. And,
well, I see in you something that Bill Campion mentioned. is he talked about, I interviewed him, and he was at Schreiner Institute for 10 years.
Yeah.
And he talked about, it was not a 9 to 5 job. It was, he ate, bread, slept, everything.
Right.
And it's almost like a calling.
But we got in trouble one night for drinking.
Okay.
And Campion caught us. And it was towards the end of our senior year. And we were in mortal fear that we were going to get kicked out. And, everything would be down the tubes. And Campion was a master psychologist. I mean, he knew exactly how to handle the kids. And
so I'm hearing.
And he knew, in my case anyway, this was an opportunity to really sort of seal my fate for the future. And so, in typical Campion fashion, called us in one at a time to his house. And then when he got through with that guy would come and get the next guy. And of course he always had a very pale look on his face. So here, I can't remember who it was that came to get me, and I think it was about midnight or maybe 1 a.m. by the time I got over to Campion's house. And we talked for hours. And he got deep down into my heart. What do you want to do with your life, Jim? And what's most important? And what's going to get in the way of that? And he counseled me through that night, and I knew I was going to get a punishment, but I wasn't going to get kicked out. And I also knew that Bill Campion was going to be on my side for the rest of my life. And there are moments, I have a lot of people in my life like Bill Campion where I don't see him for a long time, and then I see him at just the right moment when I need to see him. And that happened to me back in the 90s when he was refereeing a game at Rice University, and I was doing my PhD, and I had been playing racquetball, and I used to go by the gym after racquetball to see if there was a good game going. They were playing Baylor that night, and it was a good game, so I sneak up in the stands, and I'm looking at the game, and I look out there, and I see there's Bill Campion. And some people know that, one of his great passions in life, other than being working with kids and coaching basketball, was he loved being a basketball official. So he was an official for the Southwest Conference for years, and then I think the SEC, and now he supervises referees and trains them. But anyway, so I stuck around after that game, and I told Bill what I was doing, and he told me how proud he was of me, and how proud he was of the whole team, and how when he looks back over his career, that season stands out more than anything in his career. He's prouder than that than almost anything else he's done. And there's no doubt that he changed every one of our lives. And if you're talking to everybody here tonight, not everybody played on that basketball team, but everybody was one of Campion's because he was our dean. And if you look at these guys today, everybody's, they're, whether or not they're successful financially in terms of their life and their relationships, and on top of that, everybody here is happy. Not just happy to see each other.
Yeah.
I think we're all happy with our lives.
This is the third reunion. How many have you been to?
This is my first one.
Your first.
Yeah, I had heard about it indirectly, and then it really wasn't until I finally broke down and got a Facebook account. I was one of the last dinosaurs to get on there, and then I started seeing all the postings, and then I'd get we all shared the Schreiner experience, and it touched and changed all of us in one way or another. None of us would be who we are. And everybody will tell you, I don't know what my life would have been like without this.
And these are people, in your case, and others where maybe they lost their father or their mother.
Right.
They were sent here on purpose, or they were threatened. They better shape up.
Right. All of us have a story of how we got. When you share an experience like Schreiner, and an experience that has an impact on you the way that it did, there's something about that relationship with all those people that does not change. It does not change. and that when you reconnect and you reconnect at that point of the shared experience, then that means that your relationship picks up again at that moment.
Like it was yesterday. Almost.
It's like it's
People
yesterday.
that the time at Schreiner Institute was a very special time. It was almost like catching lightning in a bottle.
And there were a lot of things about Schreiner at the time that we hated, and people bond around things like that, you know.
That's right.
And but those same things that we hated, we now love, but we're bonded around that too. And how God orchestrates the universe is a great mystery. But I think that all of us who went, I know very few people that have had the kind of experience that we had at Schreiner. They've had other experiences, and they've ended up good people and so forth. But no one, very few people I know had this kind of intense intervention at a point in their life where they experienced something greater than themselves, and they were able to take that with them. And I just think that that's the hand of the divine at work. I can't explain it any other way. How would he align all these teachers and coaches and people? I went on to study, philosophy and theology, and one of the theologians that I'm not an expert, I wouldn't say expert, but one that I'm very well read in is the theologian St. Augustine. He talks about the nature of the image of God in the human personality, and he says that the sense in which we're made in the image of God is that we have a Trinitarian nature, and that Trinitarian nature reflects the persons of the Trinity, and that God is the ground of being. The second person of the Trinity is the truth. He's the blueprint, the architect, and the rationale behind the universe. And we're made in that image. We have contingent being. Great Alexander fixed my intellect, oriented it towards the truth. And Bill Campion gave me the power to put that truth into reality.
Wow.
Through
That's
discipline.
a great tribute to
Through
those
discipline.
men.
Yeah.
Great tribute to those men. There's a story in Greek, whether it was Aristotle or Plato, that held the guy underwater and said, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Are you familiar with that? It sounds to me like that's what happened at Schreiner Institute.